You're watching the Intel Network and Edge V Summit series with our focus today on 5G. The 5G core is vital to deliver the promise of 5G services. But to do so, the ecosystem needs to closely collaborate to collectively address the challenges of deploying a cloud-native based 5G core network and provide communication service providers with the ability to offer new services. Joining me now to discuss the importance of the 5G core and deployment strategies are Quach, Vice President, Network Platforms Group and General Manager, Wireline and Core Network Division at Intel, Miguel Carames, who is Director of Network and Technology Planning at Verizon, and Akhil Gokul, who is Chief Technology Officer, Core and IT at Ericsson. Hello everybody, and thanks for joining us on our 5G core panel.
Hello. Thank you.
Alex, if I could start with you, what is the industry outlook for the 5G core today, and also where are we with technology readiness?
Overall, the industry outlook for 5G is actually tracking well, along with the 5G deployments that are happening around the world and have been happening for the past couple of years and will continue out through the years to come. One of the characteristics of the 5G network is that it's virtualized and it's moving to a cloud-native environment. And the virtualization of networks actually started not with 5G, but over like a decade ago with the advent of NFV, where the industry started transitioning from very vertically oriented, vertically integrated hardware and software solutions for the network. And the decoupling of hardware and software started with NFV, and it's been happening, again for over the past 8 to 10 years or so. And with the decoupling of hardware and software, the solutions that are based on high performant hardware compute communication server technology that power the network today actually have reached a point where they can scale well with the requirements of the 5G core network. And then the software infrastructure from OSVs and software solutions coming from leading companies like Ericsson have also been modified to take advantage of these off-the-shelf communication server-based technologies, where I think today you have a very compelling and adequate set of solutions to power the 5G core networks. So that's my view. I'd love to hear from my colleagues at Ericsson and at Verizon. So Akhil and Miguel, I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you see the 5G outlook and then the technology readiness.
No, thanks, Alex. And as you mentioned, I think the ecosystem is primed for 5G to scale. Some of the technology advancements that happen in the 4G world with virtualization, we are piggybacking on it. So 5G is here now. We see a lot of traction for the non-standalone deployments. And when it comes to Ericsson, we are there in 45 live networks across 25 countries involved with 5G deployments. 5G core is an instrumental part of that. It's a cornerstone where you translate connectivity to a user experience. You translate connectivity into agility and programmability of the network that can be exposed to the end user.
Yeah, and so from my perspective, I have to agree with Alex and Akhil both. I think we've set the foundation for how we want these networks to work in the future and what we want them to look like for the next 10 years. We are well along the way on the 5G side with a lot of deployments around the world, including here in the US, different services, different spectrum assets being put to work. On the 5G core specifically, I think we're still in the infancy, right? We have the first trial systems. We are kind of grasping how things are going to work in this new cloud native microservice Kubernetes-based architecture in networks, and how we're going to be scaling them, how we're going to be feeding architectures to use cases and deliver the kind of the promise of 5G.
Thanks, everyone. Miguel, if I can continue with you, what is the expected timing for the commercial rollout of the 5G standalone core? And also, what are the main use cases that customers, consumers, and businesses are demanding, which the 5G core will have to process?
So it's a really good question. So we are starting to see some of the first early deployments, trial announcements happening around the world with the early adopters. So this is kind of an opportunity for all of us to learn and see how these networks operate, how they scale, how the services can work, how the frontline teams can manage and optimize these networks. At the same time, the standalone is not just a core player. You need the entire ecosystem to be developed, so you need the support on the RAN side, on the device, and on the chipset. So I think we are still early. As I said, the early trials and deployments are happening as we speak. As far as volumes and massive adoption, I think we are just starting. It's probably something that's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years.
Great. And Akhil, what are the different paths that your customers can take in order to deliver 5G core?
When it comes to 5G core, there are different aspects. With 4G, you had the virtualization of EPC. Then the early introduction of 5G with option 3X gave some enhanced capability to the 4G network. And when you look at 5G core, it brings the additional value in terms of cloud native deployment and a new architecture with service-based architecture. So essentially, Ericsson approach has been to give flexibility to our service providers to accommodate different starting points. The way we have looked at providing this flexibility is with a dual mode 5G core portfolio. Our dual mode 5G core portfolio essentially incorporates 4G EPC functionality, 5G NSA functionality, as well as the 5G core SA functionality. And we bring in all of these functional capabilities on a common cloud native platform. By doing this, we give them flexibility to start in any one of the 3 tracks. We have some operators who I would say have explored the 4G track with technologies like CUPS, as well as bringing in some of the container network functions in the 4G network. However, the majority of the deployments that we see globally have started with the option 3X. This is an area where Ericsson, along with other industry partners and operators, have gravitated towards a 1-3-2 approach, and that's been very helpful. Option 3 towards an option 2, where the ecosystem is focusing in that direction.
And Miguel, Akhil just spoke there about the different tracks are available. What path has Verizon chosen to deploy its 5G core, and what are the advantages to using this approach?
So Akhil actually set up my answer really well already, right? So we at Verizon, we are very happy to see that the ecosystem has kind of settled on this 1, option 3, and then evolution to option 2 approach. Over the last couple of years, there was a lot of noise based on the multiple evolution options that 3GPP offer, moving from EPC to 5GC. And so we were concerned, and some other like-minded MNOs were concerned as well, that some of those options would end up kind of splitting the resources that had to work in the specifications to solidify something that could actually be implemented. So, definitely very happy to see that this 1 to 3 to 2 is becoming the norm. Our approach is very aligned to what Akhil was describing. We are building a 5G core with a 10-year outlook, right? So we are building the network that we're going to be using to serve our customers, to deploy new services for the next 10 years. At the same time, we have very practical needs as well. We have 120 some million subscribers, generate a lot of usage, and we want to move all that traffic to the new core, to the directional platform as soon as possible. And this concept of a combo architecture where the 5G core can serve the pre-existing option 3X traffic as well as potentially 4G traffic is obviously very compelling to us. And we see this as the key enabler for some of the main goals that we're trying to accomplish with the 5G core. Right? Again, it's offload the traffic we already have, be able to offer differentiated services that are consistent no matter what the access technology. And then some of the other more advanced services that will be coming up where we have use cases that will require workloads to be placed in different parts of the network. And the 5G core and the 3GPP specs that come with the 5G core provide the flexibility and the elegance, right, to accomplish some of these new architectures that fit better the use case than you could do it with previous iterations of the core.
Alex, this all obviously requires industry collaboration. How is the ecosystem working together to bring solutions to market for the 5G core?
Yeah, that's a good question. It takes a village to bring together solutions for the 5G core. I think if you go back to the statement I made earlier about the decomposition of hardware and software, moving into a virtualized environment, moving into cloud native, that really unleashes a tremendous amount of innovation potential across the industry, and for leading companies like Verizon to offer really compelling 5G services. But that decomposition of hardware and software actually poses different challenges, in that the industry is moving from single vendor solutions to now multi-vendor environments, where you have to bring solutions from vendor A working on top of vendor B, working on top of vendor C, and that sometimes can actually delay the trials and deployments. So a big area of focus for the industry, and certainly for Intel and our partners, is to really look at how to deliver pre-integrated, pre-configured, pre-tested, pre-validated solutions, so that we can accelerate the trials and accelerate deployments. One of the things that Intel provides is what we call Intel Select solutions, which are pre-configured solutions that we actually work with a number of different vendors in the ecosystem to drive scale. So we test and we validate these solutions, and we know that whoever is going to consume these solutions can have the peace of mind that the solutions work well. Another way we work with the ecosystem, let's say with Ericsson, is to partner with Ericsson to optimize what Akhil mentioned, their dual core set of solutions, to have that set of suite of applications take full advantage of the underlying performant hardware. So that when we bring these solutions into a service provider network, that the solutions we know will work, and that can actually shorten the time to deployment.
Akhil, are there any special or new technologies that you are designing into your 5G core network products that are making this transition and making the deployments easier and more operationally efficient for operators?
Absolutely. If you look at 5G core, it is heart of the network when it comes to the transformation. You're taking something that's fundamental and giving an end user experience. So from that point of view, we see our customers kind of taking a twofold approach. One is to bring in the benefits of cloud native platform, web scale platform to their network. And the other one is to introduce a new paradigm shift in their architecture from a network design perspective with SDA. And we feel to enable both of those tracks, we need to provide a set of portfolios that enables that smooth migration. So here, Ericsson, we have taken a twofold strategy. One is to ensure that there is a smooth horizontal integration. So Ericsson brings capabilities not only with the core technologies with 5G, but also on the radio side and the IT side of the house. So we enable an end-to-end functional validation, which helps accelerate the adoption of 5G core technologies. The other area that we focus is to be agnostic and dovetail very well into existing investment made when it comes to northbound integration with regards to orchestration and management systems. The approach is to build upon existing investments in HC and align with new disruptions coming with ONAP and things of that nature. On the southbound side, when deploying on cloud native platforms, we have taken a cloud native first approach. We work very closely with the CNCF community. And by doing that, our applications are agnostic and can sit on top of any cloud platform. We've also focused on some other areas of innovation to help this transition, which are more focused on the operational aspects by not losing sight of the needs on the 4G network, which gets translated to 5G, but at the same time bringing the innovation and the new capabilities that cloud native behavior brings to the table. So it's an amalgamation of both that we're trying to find a nice balance and provide it to our service providers. In addition, we have focused on a couple of areas of innovation, particularly to make the network more programmable and expose network assets to our end customers. So there is an emphasis on the exposure capability. And then one of the benefits of 5G core is you get much more granular ways of defining your policies and your quality of experience. And we want to enable that to be translated to the end customer. The other area, and I think Alex mentioned about this briefly, is talking about how we can look at performance. We're talking about low latency, high bandwidth, very fast throughput, high throughput, fast speeds. And there's a focused attention that we are working with partners like Intel, Verizon, and others in the ecosystem to drive high performance applications for your far edge or your edge computing scenarios.
Thank you, Akhil. Miguel, can I ask, why is the 5G core built on a service-based architecture?
So that's probably one of my favorite questions, Guy, and I think Akhil again said the foundation pretty good here. So if you think about what we are trying to get with the 5G core from an architecture perspective, we'll eventually have a core that's a lot more complex than what we've had in the past with previous generations, right? So different slices, different network functions, which might be shared by multiple slices or fully dedicated to an individual slice, depending on the use case. And then we'll have network functions that are decomposed into microservices. So these networks are more complex. You have more instances to manage, and those instances have to communicate. If you think about how things are done in the 4G core today and in other legacy technologies, most of the relationships between the applications is very point to point. You tell application A that for a given call flow or use case, it needs to talk to application B, and there is one or a limited set of ways to reach that application. Well, so if you try to apply that same principle to that architecture of the future that we'll have in the 5G core, it could be impossible to manage. We need basically a network where service discovery is built into the very foundation of the software from day one that enables the automation, orchestration, and that provides the flexibility that accomplishes two things, right? This very complex network has to be simple to be operated. Therefore, you have service orchestration, you have self-healing. At the same time, you have the flexibility that customers are looking for. At the end of the day, if we are building a core just for us engineers, we'll have nothing, right? A very expensive tool. We have to deliver value to our customers. And what do our customers want is the services that the ecosystem will dream of, the ones that we don't even know are coming yet. They'll have some very specific requirements. And the expectations will be that the 5G core and the 5G ecosystem overall will help us meet those requirements to support those services immediately, super fast, right? So that's one of the goals that we need service-based architecture for. And then if we think about the enterprise side of things, the enterprises want to be able to differentiate different traffic types. They want to prioritize, for example, sensors over tablets. They want to accomplish their latency goals for mission-critical applications, while some of the other traffic is still best effort. And so we'll have to get a network that's very dynamic and programmable to meet those different requirements. And SBA is a big component of that.
And moving forward, what is the role of the central office?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Guy. And so when you think about the conversation we just had on service-based architecture, the role of the different locations within the network is going to evolve. And the next generation central office is a good example. Right? We will have a future in which the border between mobility services, fixed services, kind of blurs. We'll have what used to be only delivered over fiber, it'll be delivered over wireless now. And we'll want to make sure we have a consistency. And with that comes a different set of requirements, right? You might have different amounts of throughput, the different types of what's the regular BC hour or the typical user behavior. And we'll have to be able to customize the set of features and even the architecture of the applications that serve this new generation central office. The needs of a fixed wireless service or a traditional fiber service are very different from mobility service. So service-based architecture will help us identify what services the customer wants, what technology we need to make sure we meet the requirements of that service, and where those workloads should be placed within the network.
Alex, building on what Miguel has just talked about, what has Intel done from a platform perspective to support and address this service-based architecture?
Sure. Yeah, Intel has done a lot of things to, from a platform perspective to address the service-based architecture and actually to provide, the best optimized resources, for and in service of this architecture. Starting with our Xeon processors, our core CPUs, that power much of the infrastructure. We've made generation on generation enhancements to the CPUs to optimize on communications workloads. And then from a platform perspective, we see what we can do working with not just the CPUs, but with network interface cards to implement features such as DDP or dynamic device personalization to optimize traffic flows towards the CPU cores to get even more performance for specific comms workloads like packet processing for and in service of these architectures. And then we've also done a lot of plugins into the Cloud Native Foundation, into CNCF, to expose more of these platform level features so that the network applications, the cloud native applications, a lot of complexity of what Miguel was talking about can actually be exposed to the applications, and the applications can take full advantage of them without necessarily having to know exactly what's in the hardware itself, right? So working with vendors in the abstraction layers to expose a lot of the goodness that the hardware infrastructure provides to power up this services-based architecture that is the 5G core.
A question for all of you now, and let's start with Akhil, if I can ask you first. What do you think are some of the future challenges moving forward with 5G core network and its deployment?
Right. So if I look at future challenges, what I see in the short-term period between the 2021 timeframe, there's going to be a lot of emphasis to industrialize the network. Right, we are bringing in new technologies from a platform point of view. In addition, we are also bringing the new architecture. So there'll be an emphasis on industrializing, giving the operational ease, and having a sense of familiarity to build upon. If you look beyond that, the emphasis is really on the programmable nature of the network and exposing capabilities. So there, we're looking for innovation. We're looking for more value-added services that can move beyond the core network and build upon what we can do with slicing technologies, service agility to bring up new dedicated networks and things of that nature. So I see the challenge is kind of twofold. In the very beginning, it's all about industrialization, getting the adoption, having a smoother transition between the 4G network and the 5G network. And in parallel, there is going to be a sense of leveraging the capabilities, towards the enterprise customers or building upon, as Miguel mentioned earlier, new use cases for the consumer segment with the gaming and things of that nature. So we see a combination of both. And what is going to be pivotal is making sure that journey is as smooth as possible.
Indeed. And Miguel, what future challenges do you foresee?
Picking on kind of Akhil's answer. So when I look at my current function, I see two main challenges even within Verizon, right? So I serve two communities of internal customers, if you will. I have to be very mindful of what services I enable my marketing and product team to build, right? So we can provide value to the customers and we can generate the revenue. That obviously is how we deliver value back to our stakeholders. So that's critical. At the same time, I have an equally important set of customers downstream that are going to be running this network. So one of the challenges that I see is we are rolling a lot of technology. A lot of this technology is new for us and us. And, with flexibility that the technology provides comes complexity as well. So I think it's going to be critical for all of us really represented in this call. And Alex also touched on this, is to build a very robust tool set that helps the teams that effectively run these very complex, large networks operate them to the level of performance that we've grown accustomed to and beyond in a way that is simple, right? It should be easy for the downstream teams to be able to tell what is and isn't working and be able to take actions to remediate issues as they happen. So to me, those two are top of mind. And then the third one, when looking at the ecosystem outside, is I think the promise of 5G is so significant. There are so many things that we can do with this technology that we also will have to manage our customers' expectations, right? The industry has done a really good job at communicating what we are thinking and what type of services we can support and what type of capabilities we'll be able to expose. With that comes a lot of excitement, obviously, from the ecosystem and our customers. And now we'll have to make sure that we can explain how things work, what's realistic at different points in the journey that we are just embarking on, and kind of how can they derive incremental value from these networks that we're going to be building.
And Alex, what future challenges do you see ahead?
I think Miguel and Akhil captured, a lot of the sentiment, and I share that. This is truly a journey that we've embarked on, and we're really at the beginning of that journey. If you look at the short-term challenges, it's really about making this complexity, easy to consume. And, I think of that in the context of, working with companies like Ericsson to deliver consumable solutions to Miguel. And then you've heard from Miguel actually a completely new paradigm of making it easy for his customers, for Verizon's customers, to be able to consume, both on the enterprise side and on the consumer side. And so while I believe that we have a robust set of technologies that actually can come together in an integrated fashion to support this services-based architecture that is the new 5G core network, there is still a lot of work to be done relative to making it very simple to deploy, to operate, to manage, to orchestrate. And then on top of that, it's Miguel talked about this as well. Being able to host services that we don't even know really have a good grasp of, which ones will be the very successful ones. So there's a lot of experimentation going on. And so just to have the foundational flexibility to accommodate these new use cases, exciting use cases that 5G promises, I think will be an exciting and yet challenging, set of times ahead of us.
And Miguel, I just want to pick up on your previous comment about the ecosystem. What would be your request to the ecosystem to make core deployments easier and quicker?
Probably my favorite question, right, out of all of them. So I'm going to start by obviously acknowledging and thanking the partners that are represented here, right? So we have Intel and Ericsson are both critical partners for Verizon. We have a number of efforts that are ongoing with both of them, right? Deploying new solutions and new technologies. So a phenomenal amount of work has gone into getting us to where we are now. And we all need to pause and take a minute and reflect upon the advancements in the technology we've gotten already. At the same time, we are a demanding customer. We have a lot of expectations for this network, right? So I'll start with a reference to my CFO, if you allow me for a second, right? So our CFO always says Verizon is an and company, not an or company. And so as Alex and Akhil have mentioned, things that we have that we expect from the ecosystem is collaboration that allow us to keep being an and company. And what I mean by that is we need, for example, to derive the maximum performance out of every cloud resource that we put in the network, right? We have to optimize how we use our assets. At the same time, and that will allow us to provide the best performance. At the same time, we need to do that while optimizing the price point so we can pass the savings on to the customer, right? This is a competitive marketplace. So that's a critical one. Collaboration has to continue. Some of the things that we've seen, embracing open source, the Cloud Native Foundation tool set, leveraging the tools that partners like Intel provides, right? So there are a lot of tools in that toolbox. So how can we leverage them to ensure that vision of a top-performing network that provides services that never stop evolving. It's another key ask to the ecosystem. And then kind of like we all need to think about, I guess, in terms of open interfaces and open APIs, including ourselves as MNOs. So much of what we are going to be building, it will be the foundation for the companies that will develop the services that will write these capabilities to do what they do, right? Innovate and offer creative solutions that solve pain points for our customers. And a lot of these require us to be able to expose network capabilities, APIs, and so on. So I would say this collaboration in the ecosystem, where I think at times the border between us, customers, and vendor partners are no longer there. We are both a customer and a vendor to our vendors. We provide our platform. We act as integrators. So we can no longer operate in silos. This is a goal that we all have, to build this network that will allow us to deliver the value of 5G. And we are in it together, and we need to keep working together, basically. So that's my ask to the ecosystem, acknowledging how much progress we've made, and this is good, and we still have to do more, and we still have to do better.
Thank you, Miguel. And also thanks to Alex and Akhil for joining us and explaining the importance of the 5G core and its ongoing development. Don't forget, you can watch additional interviews and discussions on 5G as part of the Intel Network and Edge V Summit series. For now, though, thank you for watching, and goodbye.